We're in Tokyo! Nobody cares about your little graduation dinner, loser.
Enjoy Tokyo, because by sunrise, every dollar funding your perfect lives will be gone.
We're in Tokyo. Nobody cares about your little graduation dinner. That was the message my sister sent while 15 members of my family smiled beneath the neon lights of Shibuya. On a vacation I had secretly paid for. Then my cousin added, "Enjoy eating alone, loser." I stared at the photograph for 5 seconds, closed my graduation menu, and made one phone call. By sunrise in Tokyo, at every luxury they thought belonged to them had disappeared. Hello. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 34 years old when I finally learned that generosity without boundaries does not create gratitude. Sometimes, it only teaches people how comfortably they can use you. This story began on the night I earned my master's degree in financial analytics. It should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. Instead, it became the night I stopped financing the people who treated me like I was worth nothing. For most of my adult life, my family called me the practical one. That sounded respectful, but it was really their polite way of saying I was useful and boring. My older sister Vanessa was the exciting one. She had perfect hair, thousands of followers online, and a talent for entering a room as if cameras were already waiting for her. Our parents admired her confidence. Our cousins copied her clothes. Even when she made a mess, someone rushed in to clean it up. Usually, that person was me. When Vanessa's boutique nearly failed, I gave her $40,000 through a small business investment company I owned. She believed the money came from a private investor named North Harbor Capital. She never asked who controlled it. When my parents could no longer afford the mortgage on their large house in Connecticut, I purchased the loan through a family trust and reduced their monthly payments. They told everyone their bank had offered them a special program because of my father's excellent reputation. When my cousin Derek wanted to start a video production company, I leased his cameras and editing computers through another company. He called himself a self-made entrepreneur. And when my Aunt Linda needed surgery, I paid the portion her insurance did not cover. She thanked my mother because she assumed my parents had helped her. I kept my involvement quiet because I did not want applause. I wanted my family to feel secure. After my fiancé, Michael, died in a highway accident 6 years earlier, a work and family became the two things that kept me moving. Michael used to tell me, "Help people stand, Claire. Just don't let them stand on you." I remembered the first half of that advice. For years, I ignored the second. While working full-time as a risk director at a regional bank, I studied at night. Some evenings, I fell asleep beside an open laptop. Some mornings, I woke before 5 to finish assignments before work. My graduation was not just a ceremony to me. It represented 6 difficult years of rebuilding my life. 3 months before the ceremony, I reserved a private room at a restaurant in Manhattan. I invited my parents, Vanessa and her husband, 4 aunts and uncles, and 8 cousins. 15 relatives accepted. Vanessa even sent me a message. "Finally! We're going to celebrate our little genius." I smiled when I read it. I should have noticed the word, little. Vanessa could turn any compliment into an insult so smoothly that you thanked her before realizing you had been cut. 2 weeks before graduation, my mother called. "Claire, would you be terribly disappointed if we changed the dinner date?" I asked why. She hesitated. "Vanessa found an incredible travel deal for Tokyo. It's the only week everyone can go." I stopped typing. "Everyone?" I asked. "Well, most of us. It's a family opportunity. My graduation dinner is a family event too." "Of course it is. But you understand how difficult it is to coordinate 15 schedules." They had somehow coordinated those same 15 schedules to miss the most important night of my life. I asked whether the trip could begin one day later. My mother sighed as though I were the unreasonable one. "Please don't make this into a competition. You're an adult, Claire." That sentence stayed with me. You're an adult. In my family, adulthood meant I was old enough to absorb every disappointment quietly, while Vanessa remained young enough to be excused for creating them. Still, I did not argue. I told my mother I hoped they had a safe flight, though what none of them knew was that the credible travel deal had come from Vanessa's boutique rewards account. That account was connected to a corporate credit line guaranteed by North Harbor Capital, my company. Vanessa thought she had earned the travel rewards through her successful business. In reality, I had kept her boutique alive for 18 months, and every expense still depended on my guarantee. Even then, I did not plan revenge. I told myself they would video call me after the ceremony. Perhaps they would send flowers. Maybe they would return with a thoughtful gift and apologize. I kept protecting the image of a loving family long after the real family had stopped protecting me. On graduation day, I wore a navy dress Michael had once said made my eyes look brighter. I carried his old silver pen in my purse. When my name was announced, hundreds of people applauded. I looked toward the empty seats I had reserved. For one foolish second, I imagined my parents running through the doors late. No one came. After the ceremony, classmates hugged their husbands, wives, children, and parents. I stood near a stone column holding my diploma while strangers walked around me. Then my friend Priya appeared with her husband and 2 daughters. She placed a small bouquet in my hands. "You didn't think we would let you leave without celebrating, did you?" she said. I nearly cried. Priya knew my family was traveling, but I had not told her that every single relative had chosen the trip. She and her family joined me for dinner. The private room looked too large, but Priya's daughters filled it with laughter. For a while I almost forgot the empty chairs. Then my phone vibrated. Vanessa had posted a family photograph in our group chat. 15 people stood beneath a wall of neon signs in Tokyo. My father held an expensive bottle of champagne. My mother wore a designer coat I had paid for the previous Christmas. Derek was making a mocking face at the camera. Under the photograph, Vanessa wrote, "We're in Tokyo. Nobody cares about your little graduation dinner." My cousin Derek answered, "Enjoy eating alone, loser." Several relatives reacted with laughing emojis. My mother did not laugh, but she did not defend me either. That silence hurt more than the insult. Priya saw my expression change. "What happened?" she asked. I handed her the phone. Her husband read the messages and whispered, "That's cruel." Priya looked ready to call Vanessa herself, but I gently took the phone back. Something inside me had become strangely calm. I thought of every emergency transfer, every unpaid loan, every night I had reviewed Derek's company expenses, every time my parents praised Vanessa's independence, while asking me to quietly solve another problem. Then I remembered Michael's full advice. Help people stand. Just don't let them stand on you. I excused myself and walked into the restaurant hallway. My first call was to my attorney, Samuel Reed. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Claire, congratulations, graduate. Thank you. I need you to activate the separation plan." He became silent. 6 months earlier, Samuel had convinced me to prepare legal exits from every family arrangement. He had noticed that the relatives I supported treated my help as permanent entitlement. "All of it?" he asked. I looked through the glass door at Priya's daughters, placing a graduation cap on a teddy bear. I said, "Follow every contract exactly, no threats, no shortcuts. Give every required notice. The timing will be painful for them. Their timing was painful for me." My second call was to the fraud monitoring department at my bank. I did not accuse anyone of fraud. I simply removed my personal and corporate guarantees from future spending and ordered enhanced review of any new charges. The Tokyo trip had already been paid. I was not going to strand anyone in a foreign country. Revenge did not need to be dangerous to be effective. But their penthouse hotel upgrades, private driver, luxury shopping accounts, and planned week in Kyoto had not yet settled. Without my guarantees, those comforts belonged to no one. My third call was to the restaurant manager. I asked him to remove the unused tables and bring dessert for Priya's children. Then I returned to my graduation dinner. I did not reply to the family chat. That silence became the first thing that frightened them. At 30:12 the next morning, my phone began vibrating on the bedside table. Tokyo was waking up. Vanessa called 6 times. Derek called 4. My mother left a voicemail asking whether there was some strange problem with the cards. I made coffee and listened to every message. Vanessa sounded furious. "Claire, call me immediately. The hotel says our upgraded rooms were cancelled. This is humiliating." Derek sounded confused. "Hey, do you know anyone at North Harbor? My equipment lease portal says our renewal was denied. It must be a system error." My father tried to sound authoritative. "There appears to be a misunderstanding with our mortgage service. Resolve it before your mother becomes upset. Resolve it. Not please help us. Not are you all right? Resolve it." I opened my laptop. Samuel had sent a summary of every notice. Vanessa's boutique would receive no additional funding. She had 90 days to repay outstanding advances or accept a sale of the business assets, under the agreement she had signed without reading. Derek's company could keep its current equipment until the lease expired in 60 days. After that, he could purchase it at fair market value or return it. My parents' reduced mortgage arrangement would end after the legally required notice period. They would not lose their home immediately. They would simply resume paying the actual cost of the house they claimed they could afford. Aunt Linda owed me nothing. Medical help was a gift, and it stayed a gift. That mattered to me. I was ending exploitation, not rewriting kindness as debt. At 4:05, Vanessa sent another message. "Whatever game you're playing, stop. For the first time that night, I answered. I'm not playing a game, I'm respecting your message. Nobody cares about my little achievements, so my little money should no longer concern anyone either. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, she wrote, "What money?" I sent one document. It was the public registration page showing that North Harbor Capital belonged to a holding company owned entirely by me. The family chat went silent for 11 minutes, then chaos arrived. Derek accused Vanessa of setting him up. Vanessa accused my parents of knowing. My father demanded a family meeting. 2 cousins left the group. Aunt Linda privately asked if I was safe, and my mother called again. This time I answered. "Claire," she said, "please tell me this is not what it looks like." "What does it look like?" "It looks like you're punishing the whole family over one stupid joke. 15 people did not miss my graduation because of one joke. The trip was already planned. After my dinner was planned, Vanessa found a bargain. Vanessa found access to my credit." My mother lowered her voice. "Why didn't you tell us you were behind everything?" That question revealed more than she intended. She was not asking why I had helped, she was asking why I had failed to warn them that insulting me carried a price. "If you needed to know the money was mine before treating me with respect," I said, "then your respect was never real." She began to cry. For years that sound had controlled me. My mother's tears could turn my boundaries into guilt within seconds. But this time, I heard something else behind them: hotel voices, rolling suitcases, and Vanessa arguing with a manager. They were not heartbroken because I had been hurt. They were frightened because comfort had become expensive. "We will discuss it when you return," I said. Then I ended the call. I expected the story to finish there. It did not. 2 days later, Samuel called with a discovery. During the review of Vanessa's boutique, his accounting team found repeated transfers from the business credit line to a travel account. The Tokyo trip was not the first family vacation financed through the company. There had been a beach resort the previous year, a ski weekend, birthday dinners, designer bags, and several cash withdrawals. In total, Vanessa had redirected more than $86,000 intended for business inventory and payroll. I felt sick. This was no longer about disrespect. It was possible financial misconduct. I asked Samuel not to assume guilt. We hired an independent forensic accountant named Elena Morales. She reviewed the records without contacting my family. 3 weeks later, Elena placed a thick folder on my conference table. "Someone knew these accounts were backed by you," she said. I looked up sharply. "Ooh." She pointed to a series of authorization emails. My father, he had discovered my ownership of North Harbor almost a year earlier after a tax document was mailed to the family house by mistake. Instead of telling me, he had helped Vanessa hide personal expenses inside the boutique's marketing budget. The Tokyo vacation had been listed as an international brand development retreat. 15 relatives had traveled as market consultants. Even Derek, the cousin who called me a loser, had submitted a consulting invoice for attending. The betrayal became colder and more deliberate than I had imagined. They had not merely forgotten the person supporting them. At least some of them knew exactly who was paying. They humiliated me because they believed I would continue paying anyway. I sat alone after Elena left, looking at Michael's silver pen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to expose every receipt online and let strangers tear my family apart. But public humiliation was their language, not mine. I wanted justice that could survive daylight. So Samuel notified the appropriate parties, preserved the evidence, and offered Vanessa one lawful path to avoid a destructive court fight. She had to surrender control of the boutique, repay the personal charges under a structured plan, and sign an honest statement admitting that company funds had been misused. My father had to sell an unnecessary vacation property to restore the money he had helped conceal. Derek had to repay the false consulting invoice and return equipment he could not afford. No one was left homeless, no one was denied food or medical care. But every luxury built on my silence ended. When the family returned from Japan, they demanded a meeting at my parents' house. I agreed, but I brought Samuel and Elena. Vanessa entered the living room wearing sunglasses, although it was raining outside. "You brought lawyers to a family conversation?" she asked. "You brought false invoices into a family relationship," I replied. My father struck the table with his palm. "Enough, we made accounting mistakes. You don't destroy your own blood over bookkeeping." Elena calmly opened the folder. These were not bookkeeping mistakes. They were repeated personal expenses coded under invented business purposes. Derek sank deeper into his chair. My mother stared at my father. "You said Claire would never find out," she whispered. The room froze. My father closed his eyes, and there it was, the final twist. My mother had known too. Maybe not from the beginning, maybe not every detail, but she had known enough to understand that the Tokyo trip depended on money taken from me. Still, she had allowed me to stand alone at graduation. Still, she had watched the insults appear in the group chat. Still, she had remained silent. I did not cry. I simply removed the framed family photograph from the table beside me and looked at the smiling faces. I spent years believing I was buying all of you time, I said. Time to recover. Time to build businesses. Time to feel safe. But you believed my love was permission. Vanessa folded her arms. So what do you want? An apology. Fine. I'm sorry about the text. This is not about a text. Then what is it about? It is about the fact that you knew I was carrying you. And you kicked me anyway because you believed I would never put you down. For once, Vanessa had no clever reply. Samuel placed the settlement documents on the table. They had 14 days to accept the repayment arrangements. Otherwise, the contracts allowed my companies to pursue the full amounts through court. My father read the first page and went pale. We'll have to sell the lake house. Yes, I said. That property was meant for the family. Then the family should not have used stolen business funds to protect it. Vanessa stared at me as if she had never seen me before. You're enjoying this. I considered the accusation. No, I said. I'm grieving. But grief and surrender are not the same thing. Then I left. Over the next 6 months, the life my family displayed online changed dramatically. The lake house was sold. My parents moved into a smaller home they could afford. Derek returned most of the production equipment and took a salaried editing job. Without invented success to protect, he became quieter. Vanessa's boutique was sold to her store manager, a hard-working woman named Camille who had often gone unpaid while Vanessa traveled. Camille kept the employees, renamed the shop, and slowly made it profitable. Vanessa had to find a job. At first, she called the arrangement cruel. Later, I heard she was working for a department store as an assistant buyer. For the first time, her paycheck depended on arriving on time and completing work no one applauded online. My extended family divided into 3 groups. Some apologized because they were ashamed, some apologized because they wanted financial help again, and some never apologized. I learned to recognize the difference. Aunt Linda's apology was the one I believed. She came to my apartment without asking for anything. She admitted that she had laughed nervously at Derek's message because she wanted Vanessa's approval. You saved my health, she said, crying. And I repaid you by being a coward. I did not forgive her immediately. Real forgiveness should not be another gift people demand on their schedule. But I let her try. My mother wrote letters. At first, the letters explained. Then they blamed. Finally, months later, one arrived that contained no excuses. She wrote, I taught you to be strong because your strength made my life easier. I protected Vanessa because her anger made my life harder. That was not love, it was cowardice. I kept that letter. We now speak occasionally. Our relationship is careful, limited, and honest. It may never become warm again, but at least it is no longer built on a lie. My father still believes family problems should remain hidden. I told him that secrecy protects healing only when everyone is acting in good faith. Otherwise, secrecy protects the person doing harm. Vanessa and I did not speak for nearly a year. Then, on the anniversary of my graduation, a small package arrived. Inside was a plain wooden frame. Vanessa had found a photograph Priya took that night. In it, I was seated at the restaurant table wearing my graduation cap, while Priya's daughters held spoons like microphones. I was laughing so hard that my eyes were closed. On the back, Vanessa had written, I thought leaving you alone made you look small. This picture showed me who was truly small. I am sorry. There was no request for money. No demand that I forgive her. No performance. I placed the photograph on my desk. I have not forgotten what happened. Forgiveness, if it comes, will not restore the old arrangement. I will never again confuse rescuing people with loving them. But my life grew after I stopped carrying everyone. I used part of the repaid money to create a scholarship in Michael's name for adults returning to school after personal loss. Each year, I attend the graduation dinner for the recipients. No one eats alone. And every time I see those students raise their glasses, I remember the neon photograph from Tokyo. The image my family intended to use as proof that I did not matter. Instead, it became proof that I had finally seen the truth. They thought my silence meant weakness. They thought my kindness had no limit. They thought the person left outside the celebration would keep paying for the party. They were wrong. I did not ruin my family when I closed my wallet. I simply stopped paying them to pretend they loved me. And that was the night I learned the most expensive thing I had ever financed was not a house, a business, or a trip to Tokyo. It was the illusion that people who needed me also valued me. Once I stopped paying for that illusion, I could finally afford a life of my own.